On day 14 of this conflict, Mr. Secretary, day 14, nearly 5 months ago, you stated that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. That was on day 14 of the war. Was that an accurate statement?
They didn't have a navy any longer. It was completely sunk. Their missiles were buried underneath a lot of their underground facilities, and their defense industrial base has been almost completely destroyed.
On day 14 of this conflict, in the second week of the conflict, you stated that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. Was that an accurate statement? Yes or no?
Iran's ability to challenge the United States of America at the level at which we're capable of.
That's not what I asked you, Mr. Secretary. You said on day 14, Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. Yes or no? Was that an accurate statement?
What the American military has done to the
question?
Iranian military is a historic military
Will you
defeat,
answer the
and
question
they're ineffective
under oath?
in that context.
3 weeks after you'd already said Iran's military was destroyed and combat ineffective, you said, quote, Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory. You said Iran's military had been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come. And you stated we had, quote, achieved every single objective. Were those accurate statements?
It certainly was, on behalf of the men and women in uniform, a historic military victory over Iran.
Mr. Secretary, you stated 4 months ago that Iran's military had been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come. Has Iran's military been, for the last 4 months, combat ineffective?
It's been set back not just years, but likely decades.
Mr. Secretary, you stated we had, quote, achieved every single objective. Was that an accurate statement 4 months ago?
The main objective of this was to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon.
Early in the conflict
Iran will
on
never
day
have a
3,
nuclear
Mr.
weapon.
Secretary, early in the conflict, day 3, you said one of those core objectives was to, quote, destroy the missile threat. And as you restated on day 5, to, quote, obliterate Iran's missiles and drones. Those were clearly and repeatedly stated core objectives of the campaign, which 4 months ago you declared had been completed victoriously with every single objective achieved. Were those objectives achieved 4 months ago?
No one ever stated that every single missile was gone.
You stated on March 8th, day 9 of the war, on 60 Minutes, you assured the American people of Iranian surrender. Does that remain your prediction?
Ultimately, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon to threaten the United States of America. That has been the objective, and it remains so.
So just to review, you will not answer whether your statement made on the 14th day of the war that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and made combat ineffective was a truthful statement to the American people as you sit here and ask for tens of billions more for the conflict.
Senator's time has
Had a historic and effective military campaign against the largest state sponsor of terrorism.
Won't answer the
He can't answer the question, can
No,
he?
he can't. And this is brutal.
It was brutal. Politically, it has significantly uplifted Senator Ossoff, who was asking the questions, and significantly degraded the public view of Secretary Hegseth. But to get to the substance of this, do these people even have an understanding of Iran's military strength?
Obviously not, Judge. And it's crazy. They could have just go to Iranian accounts on X if you want to get in detail. If you don't want to ask people in the GCC, for instance, who know about it. It's absolutely mind-boggling. But it's the typical imperial mix of arrogance and ignorance. And this performance, this minute and a half performance is stellar in it. And especially as we now know, and it's going to get much, much worse from now on, that Iran is turning the U.S. all across the Persian Gulf deaf, dumb, and blind. I'm sure everybody from my generation, you remember the Who, Pinball Wizard. Deaf, it sure plays them in pinball. But now, who's playing pinball? The Americans are playing pinball with the bully. And they're turning the bully deaf, dumb, and blind.
Let me ask you a few questions about Israel. Why is it that Israel does not appear to be involved in the Iran War 3.0?
Ooh, this is very juicy. very, very juicy. I was discussing this with some Yemeni friends, in fact, because they want the Americans to bear the full responsibility for the debacle coming ahead, including the possibility, the normalization of using tactical nukes if they go along with these rumors of bombing the Pickaxe Mountain. So the
Who
responsibility.
has the tactical nukes? Iran?
No, the Americans. The Americans using tactical nukes to bomb rocks that are absolutely impenetrable. If that happens, the responsibility will be exclusively American and not shared with the Israelis. So yes, they want the Americans to be deeply implicated in a war that they cannot simply walk away from against Iran. This is the Israeli agenda at the moment. And of course, eventually, the partnership will be back for another massive attack against Iran further on down the road. This is the short midterm plan.
Well, here's another senator at the same hearing, and Secretary Hegseth again unable to respond. Chris, number 7.
The Strait of Hormuz is still closed, reminding everybody it was open before the war. Prices were lower for everybody until the war, and it still remains closed. And of course, tragically, people, service members, our war fighters, who we care deeply about, are still dying. So what's different? Mr. Hegseth, Secretary Hegseth.
I think your characterization of this incredible effort as a failure is reckless. And I think it's irresponsible. And I think it smears the sacrifice of the troops that are out there making on behalf of the American people to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Shame on you and others who call this a quagmire and a failure, and then you want to turn around and say you support the warfighter.
Secretary Hegseth, if you listen to my comments, you would have heard me say how amazing our warfighters are.
I heard failure. And the word heard, I heard exactly what you said.
I will tell you how I use the word failure, because I use the word failure to their leaders. You, sir, are the failure, not the men and women who are on that front line, not the men and women who hold up their honor with distinction. But if there's a lack of a winning strategy, they're in harm's way. Their leaders have failed them. And that's what's happening. We have political leadership. You don't have a strategy. You don't have a long-term plan to actually win this war. Win the war. The men and women are going to be able to do it, but they need to have leadership. When will you show leadership? When will you show leadership?
Why don't you show some leadership and stand up to your fellow Democrats who won't fund the troops, who stand and play partisan politics while you don't give us the money? You want to stand up here and talk about the troops? You won't show any political courage to actually fund our department because you have Trump derangement syndrome and can't actually commit to anything meaningful. So I put this on you, Senator.
Secretary Hegseth, you have trillions, you have over $1 trillion, you're asking for $1.5 trillion. It's not a question of money, it's a question of leadership and understanding what it takes to actually.
This is what we're dealing with.
Wow,
we're dealing with Trump's Hollywood-looking former Fox anchor totally out of his field.
Absolutely. And he doesn't even know what this war is about to start with. And of course, he can never recognize, especially in public, that this war was never about the Iranian nuclear dossier. This is an oil choke point war. This is an energy war. This is a war to control energy in petrodollars. This is a war to save the petrodollar in West Asia. This is a war to strangulate, isolate, and eventually conquer Iran. This is a war against the Iran-Russia-China strategic partnership, the interlocked strategic partnerships. It's a war against BRICS. It's a war against the global south. It's a war against 3 civilization states. We are redoing Eurasia in the image of civilization states and, of course, trade and good relations and indivisibility of security for everyone.
Is it fair to say that the Kremlin and Beijing would never permit the U.S. and Israel to topple Iran, and the Americans apparently don't understand that?
No, No, they don't. They don't because they don't understand this very complex process of integration of Eurasia. They don't understand the direct connection between the proxy war in Ukraine and the war against Iran. They don't understand how Beijing, Moscow, and Tehran are always talking about how they need to keep the US away from Eurasia for good, maybe a few pockets here and there. They don't understand the discussions inside BRICS, when BRICS until this year was relatively functional, about, okay, how we are going to organize the geoeconomic and financial aspects of keeping the US away from Eurasia. None of that. It's too complex for somebody as pedestrian as the Secretary of Forever Wars and everybody around him.
Wow. You know, if the Iranian military capability has been totally obliterated, as the president and Secretary Hegseth have maintained, how did they destroy all these military bases, and how did American service people die in Jordan this week?
Exactly, and that has not even started. This is part of, you remember a few weeks ago when Iran was saying, basically our response from now on is going to be 2-1. You hit us once and we hit you twice, and much, much harder. And now it's 2-1 and 3-1. And they are pounding the same bases over and over again. There are more or less 20 bases in the Persian Gulf and also including Jordan, etc. Only 4 are in a relatively good shape. The other 16 are decimated or on the way to being completely decimated. And this will continue. And this is part of the Iranian message, which was relayed to the Pakistanis. And after Trump vetoed any possibility of going back to the MOU, okay, it's your decision. If you are willing to pay the price of ourselves destroying all your infrastructure, your security umbrella all across the Persian Gulf to a point of no return, you want to pay that kind of price. That's it. The other possibility is very, very simple. You signed a document. Fulfill your commitments.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Before we leave, Pepe, I want to post the Ayatollah's tweet. You may have seen this. This is 2 or 3 days ago. And I'll read it for the benefit of those taking the show audio only. Now that the American enemy is seeking to escalate the conflict, thereby incurring even heavier costs and further humiliation, it should know that the noble nation of Iran and the resistance front have unforgettable lessons in store for it. I emphasize, Pepe, now this is me, his phrase, and yes, the resistance front.
Exactly, because this is the axis of resistance in action. Another example, why the Yemenis of Ansar Allah, the Yemeni armed forces, install a blockade of the Red Sea and the Bab al-Mandeb for the Saudis and not for everybody else. So this is a naval blockade against the Saudis. The Bab al-Mandeb is another nuclear weapon, just like Hormuz. But it will be blockaded for everyone only if the Americans attack the power infrastructure and the electrical infrastructure in Iran. This is, according to the Yemenis, a siege for a siege. They have been under siege by the Saudis for over 11 years. So now they decided to respond. And it's strictly against Saudi Arabia. If the Americans think that they can expand the war and involve the axis of resistance, including Yemen, then they block the Bab al-Mandeb. And one of my Yemeni friends told me, I asked him directly, and he told me, do you know why we did this today? We could have done it much later. Because our intelligence, in conjunction with Iranian intelligence, we know that there is the possibility of a massive American attack against the whole axis of resistance, not only against Iran, but against us in Yemen, against Hezbollah, against Hashd al-Shabi in Iraq. So that's why we anticipated this. This is immensely important because it shows to all of you, our audience, how the Yemenis see the whole chessboard in detail. And when you go there, Judge, and you talk to them, it's immensely important and impressive. I talked to members of their political council.